All right, so we are going to finish up, hopefully, this black logo in this demo if I can move fast enough. So what do I need to do? I'm going to take my master layer that's at the back. I'm going to take its opacity down so I can see my sketch underneath it. And I'm going to use the pen tool to create shapes to cut out from that background black layer, right? Just like I used the pencil tool to add here. Now I could use the pen tool and do all those curves, and that's actually a better idea because there's a lot there. But if I use the pencil tool, notice it will just create a lot of extra anchor points for me. And though that can look good from a distance as a really clean logo, you don't want your curves to be the slightest bit wonky. And what the pencil tool gives you is either lots of straights or curves that are slightly wonky. So then you have to spend a lot of time getting in there and smoothing them out. And that's why I recommend the pen tool more. But I wanted to show you the pencil tool just so if it does work for you in a way you're happy with for your style of logo, more power to you. Okay. So how do I cut out with the pen tool? We're pretty used to this now. Give myself a little bit more screen space. It's always going to create a path just on the top of everything. So I'm using the pen, and I start where I want to cut it out. And I go to my first curve. Go to my second curve. It goes to a straight. Take it to the peak of the arc and then curve it. And it goes to another curve that loops back. Then it goes to a straight. So if I want it to be a curve again, I have to click and drag, curve it out. Then it's going to be another curve. And I don't particularly want that curve. I want to go up to the ear. So I'm just going to shortchange it a little bit right there and fix it later. And I go up to here and I turn it into the curve I want. And I go down and I use that curve even though I don't want it to be a curve at the top. I'll change that later. And remember, I'm making a shape to cut out from the existing black shapes. So I want that curve. And then I want cut it off here, go around, and close it up. Very important to close your loop. Okay, now I'm going to switch it from being a border to being a fill, and I'm going to make that fill white just so you can see it clearly. And then I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to move these anchor points around. And their handles. Doing the things I wasn't able to do just with the pen tool alone. Adjust them on each side. And not going for perfection, but going for something that I like. And what is nice about using the pen tool is it makes everything clean. So you can't trace a drawing with the pen tool and not have it come out clean. It's going to come out clean. That's how the pen tool works. Okay, now I'm going to take this layer, I'm going to hold down Shift and select the master layer behind, and then I'm going to subtract one from the other. Then I'm going to select my master layer again, take its opacity all the way up. And now I just want to make little adjustments to this pencil tool one so that it connects beautifully. And the benefit of having too many anchors is if one's confusing you, you can just delete it. Right, so I can delete a lot of these that the pencil tool created and then just work on the curve within one. So you can see by having so many paths, so many anchors, it's a little trickier to get everything smooth. I'm going to delete a few more so I can just have a few curves here on the inside. And that's why I don't recommend using the pencil tool all that much. But now with this one anchor, I can control the curve on both sides. And this is me being nitpicky like I would for a professional job. But even though it's super small, that little overlap of those two vector shapes drives me nuts. So I just want to bring it into alignment. And then what is this one? Maybe stretch it up and out. Oh, it's so annoying. Feels like there's an empty path. No, that's the master path. Okay. So there's just that little lip on the master path that I don't like. So what I can do is I can delete that from the master path. It's annoying. But I don't know if I want to. So I might just have to live with that for now. It's easy to fix in Illustrator, but not here. Okay, so that's looking good. For some reason this moved. Not sure how. I'll move it back. The joys of using a browser-based program. Now just my last two cutouts of the master shape. Just here. Remember, I still have control of the outside dimensions of the master shape, just not the inside, because they got cut out. So I'm going to use the pen tool. I'm just going to do it with straights. Show you this method. If you're getting really upset with the pen tool, this is kind of a nice way to go about it. And just make sure it's all closed off. Turn off the border. Turn on the fill. It doesn't really matter what the fill color is as long as you can see it clearly. And now I can turn these to curves where I want curves. And then I can delete one from the other by selecting on both and subtracting. And then I can do that again with the pen tool, doing all straights, for expediency. Making sure I close it off. Turning off the border, turning on the fill. Changing the curves where I want curves. And then, of course, you can use the rotate and scale options of the transform box as well. And then select both, subtract one from the other. And I don't like this little hump in the line art here, and I should have control of that through these curves. There we go. This is what I've got so far. Now just a few more lines. I'm going to go ahead and use the pencil tool. Let it plot the anchors for me as I just work around these last few marks. It's not going to close, which is annoying, but turn off the border, turn on the fill, go ahead and make it black. And then there's two ways I can work to make this into curves instead of just straights, right? I can hold down Shift and round all of the corners, right? And that gives me a little bit of control. And by holding down Shift, it pushes it all in the same places. I want to try to line up those anchor points. And that's not bad. The other thing is I can always double click on an anchor point and turn it into a curve. Right? I'd rather do that more selectively, but I can't do that where the path starts and stops and doesn't connect, because then it will give me an offset. So that's what really bugs me, is I don't necessarily want it to be pointed here. And because I used the pencil tool and I couldn't close it, that's not a corner that I can round. Right, so no matter what I do with these anchors, they're separate from each other. So it looks like it did connect, maybe. So let's see, maybe I can round that. Nope. Yeah. Yep, won't let me, because they're not actually connected between these two.
Sir, I know one of those is the endpoint. Are you allowed to delete it, or would that like destroy everything?
So if you delete, because it's not contained, right? If I delete one, it will just jump to the next one, right? So that's why it's really better to be able to contain your paths. And I don't know why that's a problem for Vector with the pencil tool. But it encourages us to get over ourselves and use the pen tool, because we really do want to complete those paths. All right, here. But I like that method in general. It's pretty fast for these less than super important marks. I'm just going to try to make sure that I start and stop not at a corner. So that when I turn off the border and fill it, and then double click, and then hold down Shift and round the corners, it looks like a complete path. All right, let's see. Yeah, and I welcome your experiments. And I'm doing this more for expediency. But for this one, that's a pretty important curve, so I'm going to go ahead and use the pen tool for that. And what I like about the pen tool is I can actually just pick it up right from an earlier path.